Hey guys, welcome back to Short Stories. We're outside today since it's so beautiful, and I decided to take a walk down to the Valatia Kill, which this is right before it merges with the Kinderhook Creek here in Valatia, where I live. And I'm going to try to talk to you above the water about in defiance of club rules. You guys had a great online discussion about it. I want to address some of your questions and then do a little wrap up on what I see in the story, which isn't too different from what you see. What I really enjoyed about your discussion was differing views on the main character, Richard. And as we've been saying all semester, how you interpret a piece of literature often says as much about you as it does about the piece of literature, and that's no different here. And I think our author did an absolutely terrific job of presenting him in a way. He presented him very neutrally. The author doesn't lead us in any direction whether we should like this person or not. And very similar to Ichabod Crane, some of you hated Ichabod, some of you thought he was pretty cool, and some of you in your papers were like, this guy's terrible. And you were all right. And what it said about you is what it said about you. I happen to like Ichabod because it reminds me a lot of myself. That says a lot about me, I guess. But we're not talking about Ichabod today. We're talking about Robert. I may have said Richard a minute ago. We're talking about Robert from In Defiance of Club Rules. And a lot of you asked and speculated marvelously about the symbolism of the river that he's on. And a lot of you talked about it as the flow of life. The river goes through ruins. The river is sort of like Robert in that it's flowing, it's dangerous. However, it's somewhat confined. But you made me think about the river in a new way, and my conclusion is similar to yours in that it does symbolize the flow of life, and he flows with it. Sometimes he paddles against it. Sometimes it gets the best of him, but he embraces it. He doesn't let it conquer him, but he's not able to conquer it either. He's really meeting life. One of you wrote quite nicely, it was actually Katrina Cat, about In Defiance of Club Rules plays on the theme of living a static life. And you wrote about he lives for the thrill and excitement, toying with death, part of the theme. The main character and his fiancée like to get down in the club changing room instead of the bedroom. He is someone who lives life, but he does live it within boundaries. Now, to me, this is the very important thing about Robert, is that he might defy the club rules, but he doesn't defy his own rules. He's very careful in the river. He turns over every time he goes out to get used to flipping back up. He makes sure that the spray mat in the kayak is down just right. He's very, very careful, even though he's breaking the club rules. What's the club? Well, obviously it's the kayak club, but I think the club is the club of life, the club of society. And he's not real careful. He sort of plays within those rules as well, but he also defies them on occasion. Some of you are interested in, and to me it's very interesting, his relationship with Stella. One of you got into that. I kind of like their relationship. Yeah, they've been together 10 years. They haven't gotten married. Neither of them seems to want to get married. She wants him back out on that river because she knows he needs that. Now that's a good girlfriend, right? She recognizes what he needs and she wants him to have that, even though it is dangerous. Yeah, they like to break the rules together at the getting down in the locker room rather than a comfortable double bed. But their relationship, even though it doesn't fit the club rules of getting married, settling down, it works for them. We have a sense too that Robert at his job, since he got passed over for promotion, Robert at his job is probably a little defiant, but he does enough. He's probably a good worker, but he's certainly not a suck up to the boss. So interesting character. I think he's very real. especially compared to some of the other characters we've met this semester. And he's somebody I might like to hang out with and have it work, but I don't know if I'd want to hang out with him too much though, because you know, I tend to play by the rules mostly. So a couple of questions you guys had. Kind of a big one, and it's a good one. Is Robert the cause of the man's death? So you recall, he's kayaking down quite safely as usual, and these drunken guys, Slavs, we'll talk about Robert's mild racism also. He sees the Slavs and they're drunk and they're waving, and then he sees a skull, and he goes after the skull so he can take it to the authorities. Not because he's curious, because he wants to put a candle in it. He's doing it to go to the authorities. This is a guy who probably isn't too big on authority unless it's important. A skull? Yeah, you take that to the police. Kayaking alone in defiance of club authority? Not that big a deal. The guy lives by his own rules. So he goes after the skull for that reason. Now, the Slavs are drunk, and several of you were like, yeah, this happens when you're drunk down by a river. That's a good lesson. Don't get drunk. I'm not intoxicated at this moment by the river. Pretty steep bank down there. But I want to say that you're exactly right. Is Robert at fault for the Slav's death? Let's make a case, yes, he is at fault for the Slav's death. He's out there kayaking alone. If he had had other people with him, they could have saved all the Slavs. He hadn't gone for the skull. Maybe just kayaked back, told the police, yeah. So in that regard, he is. But in the other regard, he didn't ask for their help. He went after the skull again for a good reason. They misinterpreted his getting stuck underwater. He had it under control. He had to release, which he had never done before, but he was ready for it. Well, they wanted to come out and save him, even though he didn't want to be saved. He didn't ask to be saved. He didn't need to be saved. They were drunk in the middle of the day, and they decided to do something stupid like go out and try to help him, as kind as it was. So you can go either way. If he'd been following the club rules, yeah, nobody probably would have died. But if they had been following social rules and not jumping into water drunk, they're out of shape, completely the wrong people to be trying to save him, yeah, then in that case, it's their own fault. But it's a very good question. And again, how you interpret that might say as much about you and personal responsibility as it does about the story. I think the author is pretty much neutral on it.